Guys, I just got the go. We're live.
Awesome.
You ready to do this?
Yeah.
All right. Hey, everyone. Happy Thursday, and thanks for joining Taproom Live. We've got a super special episode today with the co-founders of Victory Brewing Company, Bill Covaleski and Ron Barchet. We're here to talk about the history of Victory, how craft has evolved, and where Victory is going. My name is Kelly Irvine, and I'm part of Team Victory. I'm going to serve as your moderator tonight because we have an entire 24 years of legacy to get through tonight. So I'm going to make sure that we keep things moving, that we're answering your questions. So make sure that you are popping those into the chat and that you all get drunk tonight. So with that, we're going to have a secret word that we have not told Bill and Ron about. Every time one of them says it, we expect everybody to drink. Sound good? We will have Chris and Lawrence, who are on our team too. They're part of the backstage crew, chatting with me, making sure that all of your questions are getting to us. So don't be shy, ask away. Let's just jump right into this because we do have Bill and Ron here to do their thing. We have a lot to get through, and we're going to ask them where they're taking this episode from, what they are drinking, and how social distancing has affected their drinking habits. Bill, we will start with you.
Well, thank you very much. Super special, Kelly. And I am comfortably at home enjoying a Helles lager, which is now our classic lager. So light, refreshing, Germanic, all the things I like to start the evening. And being here at home, if there's a little bit of chaos that pops up in the background, it's probably two college students and a Westie. It's just nonsense and noise, part of life.
Awesome.
And in terms of, drinking in this COVID-19 age, this is how it's happening. I really appreciate everyone joining me to do a few cheers and share some stories remotely because this is how we persevere. This is how we adapt and have fun throughout difficult times. So first, cheers.
Cheers to that. Ron, speaking of where you're at, tell us what you got behind you.
Well, first, cheers. Cheers, everyone, and thanks for joining us. We get to drink too, along the way. So yeah, I'm also at home. Specifically, I'm in the lower level of our bank barn that we built a few years ago. And I'm in our home brewery that I built here because can't get it out of my bones too much. If it's not enough to brew at work, I still love to brew at home, especially these days. And you talk about the impact of social distance drinking. Well, it's drinking is a social event. Drinking is something you do socially. It brings people together, and it's a really sad thing that we can't be all together, physically. But thanks to technology, Kelly, you were mentioning that earlier. I mean, the technology these days at least allows us to stay together as we endure these tough times. Specifically, I've got family here. I have a daughter and a son that are living here, and actually have a daughter and a son-in-law that are visiting me for the next week or so at least. So I'm not as lonely as it could be. But drink is indoors now. And speaking of which, I need to fill up. I was drinking the Victory Classic Lager, but I have that upstairs. I have a tank right here. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to go get a beer.
We'll have to mail us some, though. We don't mind, but once this is all over, we'd like to try some.
Yeah, that's the pain of social distancing. We're not in Ron's brewery drinking beer with him.
I know, I really want to get there, but I will say that I feel like I've been more connected to people that I haven't caught up with because we're forced to use technology to keep in touch. Let's see the pour, Ron.
Not bad. Not bad. We call that the Bavarian pour, where you get like a little bit less than what you're supposed to, but the beer's cheap and it's always great and nobody complains.
Awesome. So as we get into the history of Victory, there's a ton of history between the two of you that have started before Victory was a thing. So Bill, I want to hear from you how you and Ron met and what your early days were like before Victory was even on the map for you two.
Yeah, so we met in 1973, and we met on the school bus as we were being transported to fifth grade. And, I had just moved into that school district. Ron was there for, I guess, a year or so prior, and, or no, he was just returning to it. And so we were the new guys, so to speak. And, that was enough of a reason to get together and talk and get things going. And we were very fortunate because between our two homes was a future state park and an abandoned summer camp. So we had all this great territory to roam with our friends and have all those great discoveries and fun in the woods and just the mystery of it all.
I'm seeing your fifth grade photo right now with the two of you. This is so cool. I hope everyone on the line is trying to figure out who was who, because it's a fun game we played yesterday. Ron, were you guys cool kids in fifth grade?
Well, we were outsiders, and that's sort of what drew us together. We were coming, Bill was new to the district. I was coming back after 3 years that my family spent in Germany. So I was coming back into that district, didn't really know anybody. So obviously, we were drawn to each other because we were the two people that nobody else would talk to. So no, we were not the cool people.
You are now.
But we became that.
But we had a really cool bus
like
driver.
30 years later.
We had a really cool bus driver named Stan, who unfortunately ran over a few squirrels. And when everybody gave him a hard time over it, he just simply said, "Got in my way."
Oh, I think we lost Ron. I think
Oh,
he's
no.
speaking a little too much already. Bill, which one of these little cuties in this picture was your crush in fifth grade? Did you have one?
I'm not sure I did in fifth grade, or one that I would, yeah, so much emotional conflict in fifth grade. It's,
What
let's
was
just
your
say
teacher
all
like?
of the girls. It's safe enough.
Very safe. Did you like your teacher?
No, I did not. No,
She's horrible. She was the worst teacher.
Really? Do you have your teachers now reaching out to you because of where you are, that you grew up?
Not this one. She was. I don't know if she's even alive right now, but I would hope she would. She was mean.
She
Yeah.
was mean. Yeah.
We have a question from Steven saying, how old are Ron and Bill? Their fifth grade picture looks very 1970s from my time period. Who wants to take that one?
I'll take it. That's probably in the fall of 1973 when we first met. And I think Bill and I were probably around 10 years old then.
Spot on, Steven. All right.
Yeah. Good job, Steven.
As you guys got a
Nailed
little
it.
older, what sparked your interest in brewing? Because I know that this wasn't a thing. Craft was not what it
Sure.
was today. So how did you get into craft? And knowing that you guys were even in college on different coasts, how did this come about?
I'll jump in first. I mean, when our families got together, Ron's family had an appreciation for German beer, and my dad had an appreciation for quality beer in general. And in fact, my dad started home brewing in 1979, soon after it became legal, and used me as his apprentice. And so we were always around beer. It was not considered anything taboo. It was not something we were offered freely, but we were around it. And it was that we recognized the admiration for what was quality and what was of poor quality.
Ron, anything you would add?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, when Bill and I were, for instance, juniors and seniors in high school, there was no craft movement. The closest thing to that would be like a Heineken or a Molson, which was definitely a little bit better than some of the other brands that were available. And interestingly, Bill and I really did already gravitate to some of the better beers. And my dad actually used to make comments how he hated the fact that we were scoring. We had jobs, so we weren't stealing the money. We would take the money and we would buy like Molson Golden instead of Stegmeyer Long Neck, which, was probably half the cost. But Bill and I didn't like it. And my dad really thought that was just completely crazy. But Bill and I always like good beer. We have good taste, I think.
So modest. I see this picture
Yes.
from when you guys were on
Always.
a hockey team. I didn't even know you guys played hockey. How old were you here? Would you say juniors and seniors of high school then when you were slugging back some beers?
Oh, well, no, Kelly, that was two questions at once. First question I can answer. It looks like that was a junior year of high school photograph, if I'm not mistaken. Slugging back beers. Hockey players are known to do that, but we were, in high school. Come on.
Never. Not once.
Never.
Okay, so you guys
Maybe in
graduated.
a big Ford LTD cruising around Norristown looking for a bar that would serve 16-year-olds, right?
Tell me about
Easily.
this next photo. What is this from?
Junior
You got this
achievement.
one, Ron.
Yeah, junior achievement. My father encouraged Bill and I to get involved with this junior achievement group, which is a group, and it's still very active today, especially in our area, and very successful, a group that basically gives business mentorship to high school students. And they do it through a number of different programs. This was one of the first where they team up a group, like a local business that has sponsors, and then they sort of help this group of high schoolers come up with a product that they actually come up with the product, they build the product, they market the product, they sell the product, they keep the books on the product. And at the end of the year, you take a look and you actually take a look at your finances. It's pretty funny that we were in that, because I think after that, I don't think any of us even thought of the concept of being like business owners until it was hooked to another idea that we love, like brewing. And then it definitely made sense. But I don't know. I don't think either of us came out of this thinking we were going to get an MBA, and we love this concept of business. But it was very interesting, and I think it was formative. Bill, what do you think?
But what I will say also, following up on that, was what was really cool about junior achievement in that experience was the fact that, we had been conditioned through the educational system of sort of just listening to our teachers. Like anyone older than us was telling us what to do and who to be. This was a situation in junior achievement where we had folks older than us who understood how business worked, and they were listening to us to try and help us take our ideas forward. And that collaborative aspect of working with the next generation was, I wouldn't say mind-blowing, but it was a wholly new experience.
Very cool. So if we move on to some of your college days, Bill, you stayed local. You went to Temple. Were you part of anything like this where you were mentoring some younger people once you were there?
Not when I was there. Of late, yes, I've been working more with Temple University in terms of, helping people understand their opportunities and offering advice on what little I know. But no, I am very happy to have been an owl. It's worked out well. I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree. That's why I run a brewery. So figure that linear path out.
Ron, you went to UCLA. What was it like keeping in touch across coasts for the two of you, and how did home brewing come into play, which would eventually lead to what Victory is now?
Yeah, great question. I mean, interestingly, back then it was literally by mail, not email. And Bill and I would actually exchange letters, because when I moved out to California, it was before my senior year of high school. So we were really tight. We just stayed friends. Bill visited me at the end of that summer, and then we just stayed tight over all those years. Even though we're on different coasts, we would just, we're guys, we don't really communicate regularly, but when we would get together, we'd totally be right back to being friends, and just pick up where we left off. So that wasn't actually a problem. He visited me in California a number of times. He actually stayed out there for a summer. And then I'd come back also to visit relatives in the East Coast, and we get together. So that was actually not that big a deal at all. Easy. And we love to drink beer together. So it was always like, okay, I found this really cool stuff here in California, Sierra Nevada was just beginning right around the time we were graduating. And, we talked about that. And then in high school, I had a pool in Orange County, and he took a fancy to our neighbor. It was just good times all the time. It really was.
So
remember that?
Yeah, more pertinent to that might be the fact that, we actually celebrated our 21st birthdays just, I don't know, 10, 15 miles apart in Los Angeles when I actually did a semester out there. And our birthdays being in the spring, we were so diligent with our studies and stuff, we actually didn't celebrate our 21st birthdays together, which is kind of bizarre. So one of life's regrets.
We might have to throw you a 21st birthday to relive it.
Everyone since, so.
I think so. So as we talk about Sierra Nevada popping up when you guys were getting ready to graduate, what was craft like then? Obviously very different than it is now. And what made you decide, hey, we want to be part of this? And let's start Victory Brewing.
Well,
I'll jump in.
I'll start this and then I'll let Bill pick up from there. I would say, when we were graduating school, there wasn't really a lot of craft beer. There was a Sierra Nevada, maybe one other, but it really was in the back of our minds. We were still trying to establish our careers. I ended up moving back to the DC area, working in Virginia. And that was the time in the mid 80s, like 86, where Sam Adams was starting to make an appearance. And so why did we get into the beer? Where did it come from? Well, I think it started from just enjoying really good beer, fresh, well-made beer. And then the home brewing kit that Bill got me from 1985 for Christmas, all was sort of starting to gel in terms of a passion, maybe not a career. But Bill, maybe you want to take it from there. That was like 86, 87, and how we actually got the idea of becoming brewmasters.
Yeah, well, the funny thing is, we all know the phrase about, teach a man to fish, ... Well, I gave Ron a home brewing kit, and now look what he's got in his basement. So I don't know if that was a blessing or a curse, but it seems to be working out well. It was not a wasteland. There were some great pioneers that had come before us, and we put the puzzle pieces together to go study abroad. And our concept for Victory was the notion of giving an audience European quality beer, but fresher than they could ever get through the distribution channels. And so that's how things evolved from our homebrewing experiences. And we saw that as our singular opportunity to essentially create European quality beer. Fortunately, our audience has given us so many more opportunities to expand that flavor range, but that's what we were targeting as we were working our way step by step through this path from brewer to entrepreneur.
Ron,
anything you'd add to that?
Well, I mean, before it came to actually starting our brewery, Bill and I, as Bill alluded to, we went and studied abroad, and Bill worked at Baltimore Brewing Company right after I worked there a short time and then went to school and then came back. I worked at Old Dominion Brewing Company in Virginia. And Bill continued to then worked at Baltimore for several years. And I think that one of the things was we looked at the industry and we said, hey, we may be getting into this a little bit on the late side, but I think there's still time to sneak a brewery into the Philadelphia area because there's no really big brewery there right now. And there's got to be room with this fourth biggest city in the country for a good craft brewery. At the same time, we were working for, great mentors in the business realm and brewing realm. Old Dominion was a really great place to work. But there was, as artists that Bill and I are, a little bit, Bill, of course, a lot more, he's into the fine arts as well. But, the brewing art, I was pretty passionate about doing some things that we weren't basically doing at the breweries that we were at. One of them was using German malts to make like German style beers. And the other was, using whole flower hops. And so that sort of became the core of sort of why do we want to exist? Well, we want to bring, European quality, make it fresh. And we really want to really play up on the hops in beer. Pilsner doesn't have to be 20 bitterness units and fairly flavorless. It can be really a punch of flavor. And so I think that was sort of the impetus that Bill and I said, hey, there's a lane here. We got a city like Philadelphia that doesn't have much of a market, has a great market, but doesn't have much of a presence in craft brewing. And of course, by the time we opened, there were like 3 or 4 other breweries in Philadelphia. But I think what sort of drew us to the concept of creating the brewery that we created, although it was under a different name at the time.
Bill, what was that name? I know that you've mentioned this story to me before, but I think everyone at home wants to hear this.
I think Bill would tell that one good.
Yeah. So our original business plan that we were shopping around for investment from friends and family, we had identified ourselves as Independence Brewing Company because we felt that like the experiences that we had brought from Europe, the training that we had brought was going to parlay really well into America. And it was actually going to be America's opportunity to recapture high quality beer. And so we went with Independence until we got wind of a brewery named Independence in the Philadelphia area. I mean, come on, guys, this was pre-internet. We got a cease and desist letter in, I think it was June of 1994, which was a pretty dark moment for us, all things considered, but I think we made a great pivot to Victory.
Ron, anything to add to that?
Yeah, well, I mean, we've gotten the question, where did the name Victory come from? And it's a pretty long, a little bit, I'll make it as short as possible. Bill sort of pointed out we had some issues at this point. We had basically raised about half of the money that we needed from friends and family in order to approach a bank to take that money and leverage it to get a little bit more from the bank to make the whole thing work. We had not found a location. Southeastern Pennsylvania got a lot of great locations, but sort of they're very limited in their wastewater capability, what kind of water you can get. So we were still frustrated in that we hadn't found the right spot. Meanwhile, I think Bill said something like, hey, this is like, we don't have the money, we don't have a site. Banks are not returning, really not that interested at this point. Man, it would be a victory if we could do anything. We've lost our name, Independence, all this. And somehow Victory came out of that. It was like, well, I love Victory, but here's the issue. My Old Dominion makes a beer called Victory.
Oh, I didn't know.
They made a beer called Victory Amber for Heroes in Manassas. Hats off to Manassas if you still got Heroes there. They were a great customer. But we made one beer for them called Victory Amber. And I went to the boss the next day, and he knew that we were in the process of starting a brewery. I was always transparent about that with him because he was one of those great bosses. Jerry Bailey, if you're out there, hope you recognize that I recognize you as one of the greatest bosses I've ever had. And I told him the story, and he looked at me and he said, here's the deal. You're not going to call something Victory Amber and sell it in Virginia, right? I said, no, I definitely would agree, definitely never to do that if you'll let us. He said, okay. So tomorrow morning, why don't you just leave a dollar bill on my desk? I'll write up an agreement. And because of the dollar bill, money was exchanged, it would be official. We had the Victory name. And, that what a fabulous ending to what could have been a frustrating situation. And that's hats off to all those employers that embrace their employees' dreams. It's something that Bill and I have totally understand. We've lived it, and we've had some great employees that we've lost chasing their dreams, and it's completely something that Bill and I think is almost part of what our raison d'etre is.
I love
Part
that.
of the process, no doubt.
I felt that since I've started. So if we go back to the 1994 time where you didn't get the name you wanted, you settled for Victory. At that point, were you two married yet?
Yeah, 92. We got married 2 weeks apart from one another.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, we were both best men at one another's wedding. So,
So, Bill, what did your wives think of this as you were putting your business plan together and you wanted to open doors? Were they all for it? Were they a little skeptical?
well, we're talking partnership here. You got to lay out a plan. You got to have a compelling rationale for why this is a good reason. This is the future, and we did that. We did that as a group of four: myself, Sonny, Ron, and Linda. It was New Year's Eve of 1993-94 in my townhome in Baltimore at the time, and after maybe the third bottle of Chimay we consumed, we said, hey, here's our concept. We're thinking of writing the business plan for our own brewery. And we had been working in the industry. And fortunately, all the stars aligned. We were given the blessing to write a business plan and proceed.
Very cool. Why don't we move on to Victory, 1996. How did you land on Downingtown? Ron, I know you still live in Downingtown. Did you ever think that when you started that business then you'd be where you are now, still in Downingtown? Victory's 24 years old.
Oh man, what a question. Yeah. No, I had no idea how this would all unfold. I was in it for the adventure. I was in it for a passionate belief of bringing sensible beer culture to America. Where that happened, Downingtown was an awesome place that accepted us. And not to be technical, but they had the water, and they had great water. And if I look back, and one of the most strategically best decisions Bill and I ever made was to locate in Downingtown, not only for the water, but it turns out the demographics, our audience has embraced us from day one immensely. And it's so, yeah, I mean, I had no idea it would turn out as it is, but I had a feeling that this was going to work out good. I mean, we have a wonderful audience here in Chester County, and particularly in Downingtown.
Anything to add there, Bill?
Well, I mean, Ron really sort of hit all the high points, and I agree. But the one thing I would say, and I know this is going to sound very analytical, but it's in hindsight. The fact of the matter is that Chester County's number one output industry is still agriculture. And it sits as this amazing buffer between Philadelphia and the rest of Pennsylvania. And so the audience that we were looking to appeal to had to appreciate import quality products, stuff that they could access by flying out of the Philadelphia airport. Yet they also had to appreciate the fact of locally produced results. And so Downingtown and Chester County literally sit at the very epicenter of that concept. So we feel very fortunate that we found that home.
It's a great point. And awesome that the Downingtown location is still there today. It may look a little different, but we're getting a ton of comments right now in the feed, how people love Downingtown. They've loved it from the very start. They remember the pizzas there, playing pool and what the bar used to look like. So I've seen some photos. I don't think we have any, but we'll post them in the chat later on so that people can see what Victory Downingtown looked like years ago.
It has gone through so many changes, and everyone a new beginning, and it continues to be that way. I mean, we just installed an amazing canning line and centrifuge, and I mean a big investment in Downingtown because we really believe in it, and our partners at 6 Point are keeping us busy making beer for them.
That's awesome. We just popped through. Hey, Chris, if you can go back to those original bottles, that's perfect. I believe these are the 3 original beers that Victory started at in 1996. Any immediate thoughts or anything you want to get off? I know some people in the chat are asking about Hop Devil and how that idea came to be. Bill, I know you have some great background on that as we went through Hop Devil's 21st birthday, if you want to share.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I would say is, that was it. Those were the three bullets in our chamber when we opened our doors in 1996. This was everything that we bet on. And we believe that Fest beer was actually the silver bullet, the thing that was going to make it happen, because that was as advanced as the craft beer audience was. An Amber Lager, an Oktoberfest, a Märzen. That was pretty much where we thought folks would gravitate towards. And we had this wild ass idea in the Hop Devil, which we thought that no one would like, but it made us completely happy. And lo and behold, that ended up being the lead dog. So, you set the compass point at one point, and then you react and respond to all the other input that comes your way, and you make it happen.
The fact that Fest beer and Hop Devil are still around today says something too. You were on to something.
Good
would
point.
You
I
say,
appreciate
Ron,
that.
would you say that Fest beer and Hop Devil are some of your favorites, or you hold near and dear because they were some of your first?
Absolutely. Both of those points guaranteed. I still feel very strongly about them. It's a good story from that time period was Bill and I, as Bill said, we thought the Fest beer would be the leader. And then we thought, okay, maybe not, maybe the Brandywine Lager would be the leader. But we brought our servers and our back of the house folks about a week before we were open. We brought them into the fermenting cellar. We had beer that was almost ready, and we tried it, and it was almost unanimous. Everybody loved the Hop Devil. And Bill and I's beer that we were the most passionate about at that time was the Hop Devil, because we thought, but who's going to buy this? I mean, this is sort of because Bill and I want to drink it kind of beer, and we wanted to make a statement. It's not just people on the West Coast that could make a great hoppy IPA, but it turned out that there was an immediate following for it, which I thought was interesting. And we already sort of had a hint of that from bringing our servers into the cellar and giving them a little taste off the tank.
Sure. And I'm sure IPAs, what they are today, were not what they were like then. So Hop Devil probably floored a lot of people, and they didn't know what to make of it as the craft industry was rising.
Yeah, Hop Devil was really on the outer edge with whole flower hops, the fragrance of it. And Ron told the story very, very well. It was totally eye-opening to watch people gravitate towards that beer.
Side note, before we get into some other things, Ron, people are loving your background and your setup. So we're going to have to ask you to give us a tour at some point, not today, but another day. If everyone can just remind the group what we're drinking. Feel free to say it. Ron, if you want to say what's in the tanks back there, I know people are dying to hear.
Yeah. Okay. So I've got in this tank, I have a Helles that's about 5.5 weeks old. So it's like our classic lager at Victory, but I used a single hop from my friend, the hop farmer in Tettnang, that we use a lot of his hops in our pills. We don't use his hops in our Helles at the classic lager. And then on the far right, I have a strong lager. It's a sort of a 6% style Helles, all with 100% Callista hops. So that's a new German variety that I'm playing around with here. And, I'm hoping that some of these ideas might percolate their way into the Victory beer at some time. But, that's why this, it's part of the reason I have this is to try some crazy stuff here in my own home. And it turns out really convenient during COVID.
It does. Yeah, for everybody watching at home, he's not at a brewery right now. This is his home that he's hanging in right now. So you can tell that he really loves beer, and the home brewing has not been lost at all.
Yeah, well, come and brew with me sometime.
I have to
Triple
next
B.
time I'm up there.
It's the Triple B. It's the Barchet Beer Bunker.
That's good. See, Bill, you just helped me name another beer. It's been going on for like 30 years now. I'm close to it. 25 years.
Yeah. I
might have to use that.
So we talked about your original beers, and you thought, Hop Devil was your favorite, and it would take off like it has. One obvious beer that we keep hearing about is Golden Monkey. Golden Monkey stole the show. It's still our #1 seller today. Bill, you have a great story on how the name came about. And Ron, I know you have a great story on how the recipe came about. So Bill, let's start with the name, and then Ron will get into the recipe development.
Yeah, sure thing. So Ron and I sort of saw an opportunity in a beer. We love the style of Maibach, a May German lager that's a little bit beefier in terms of its malt, but also a little bit hoppier. But the beer that gets you out into the beer gardens when you actually shouldn't be sitting outside drinking in beer gardens. It's fortifying. So we love that style, and we were thinking of making an Americanized version that would be even hoppier than the German version. And as we were conceiving of this, I said we should call it Golden Monkey. It's going to be golden color. It's going to be somewhat alcoholic. It's going to be fun, like a monkey, and frivolous. And lo and behold, Ron's former employer, Old Dominion, came out with Springbok, which was essentially that. So that was back in the world where there were so few breweries that, like, if somebody came up with something unique, you didn't step on that turf. Those days, unfortunately, are gone. But at that time, we made a pivot, and we were like, okay, well, that's cool. They did this. We're not going to do it. And we put the Golden Monkey name on the shelf for a little bit.
And then Ron, you have a cool story of how the liquid came about to pair with this name.
It's true. So my wife and I fell in love with triple on our honeymoon in Belgium and Germany. Our first stop was Belgium, and we just fell in love with the Belgian triple. When we were there, we had some Bruges triple, and the owner of the brewery, actually, upon learning that it was our honeymoon, gave us two, I guess they would be magnums of their triple. And it was a lot of weight, and we had a 2-week honeymoon. So we drank one of them while we were over there, but we did bring one back. And then we were just waiting for a special occasion. And when my first child was born, Alyssa, was born in 1994, we brought that out, and after the birth, we celebrated with this triple. And then we really liked that. And when my second child was born a year and a half later, we got the same brand from Bruges and had it again. And then by the time my third child was on the way, unfortunately, that brewery had gone under, or they had been reorganized. There was no more Bruges triple the same. And at the same time, Bill and I were like, well, who needs Bruges triple anyway? It's like, we make beer, and why not let's give a shot at this Belgian thing. And so I said, okay, let's brew one up. And Bill had the most killer name already. In hindsight, like Victory is way better than Independence in hindsight. Golden Monkey as a triple is way better than Golden Monkey as a Maibach. So it all worked out great. So that's how that came to be.
And today it's still Victory's #1 beer. For those of you watching at home, this is a slide of our Downingtown Taproom. Our biggest marketing push right now is the monkeys, because everyone loves them. So we all talk about how Golden Monkey is better than a barrel of monkeys. They pop out of their characters, and they transcend craft beer in so many ways. I can't tell you how many messages we get on social when people say, I know you're the Golden Monkey Brewery, because that's what they know us for. And Sour Monkey was 4 or 5 years ago to follow, and now that's blown up too.
Yeah, it's really a great story in that, two guys go to Germany to learn how to make beer, and inevitably their American audience tells them, we want you to make Belgian beer. So it's been fantastic working with our audience and learning what excites them and what intrigues us, and going further on things. And Sour Monkey has been an incredible development to be involved in, and just take something that is normally a sweet beer, a triple, and move it into a sour range and have such spectacular results. So totally thankful for the audience that has embraced our European training and allowed us to do things that otherwise would have been off the charts.
That's great. So we covered 2 of my favorites, Golden Monkey and Sour Monkey. Now I think we need to move to my other favorite. You can't talk Victory and not talk Summer Love. So would love to hear about Summer Love, how it came to be. It's still around today as a seasonal for 10 years. That's a pretty huge deal. So Bill, if you want to get us into how Summer Love came about from a partnership standpoint, I think it was originally in partnership with Visit Philadelphia, right?
Absolutely. So in 2010, Visit Philadelphia had recognized how vital the craft beer scene in Philadelphia was. And they said, hey, this is actually a marketing angle. We can embrace people and invite people to come to Philadelphia because of our vibrant beer scene. And we stood up right away and said, hey, we're doing that. And we're serving all the markets of the places that you're marketing to. And so Summer Love became a collaborative opportunity where Visit Philly was looking to bring people to Philadelphia for summer visitations. And we were challenged to make something that was a refreshing craft beer that exhibited the qualities of Philadelphia, you know, the fullness, the grittiness, yet also the sublime, refreshing aspects of it.
How did the name come about?
The name was suggested by Visit Philly, and so was some of the original branding, and we embraced that. You know, brotherly love, it's a Philadelphia theme. Summer love just is sort of a example of all the different things you can do in this region to pass the time, enjoy yourself, and have a beer in your hand.
Do you want to explain the fun and special celebration we have for Summer Love for its 10th
Yes.
this year? Guys, I think you'll be very excited at home to hear about.
Yeah, so everyone's probably actually looking at previously a graphic of the label in its near original form. Obviously, we've modified that over time. For its 10th anniversary, we are bringing back the original package for 10 lucky purchasers of packages of this beer. So we have hidden the original package, the can, in these packages, and we got a great prize situation going on for those who find it. And it's a great way to enjoy summer, to appreciate all the opportunities of summer, and it's a whole lot of fun for us.
And Bill has hand-packed these himself back to the old days.
Yeah, I don't want to go into details on that. That's a blur.
We've been talking a lot, guys. I think we need to take a break and I'll take a sip and cheers to our group that's watching with us at home. And then we can get into some more. So cheers.
Cheers. Have we said the word enough? You didn't tell us the word. Are people drinking enough? Or are they getting too smashed? What's going on?
I hope people are drunk at home. I would assume that they are. Do you have any guesses on what that special word is?
I have a guess, but it's probably wrong.
Let's
What is
hear
it?
it.
Craft.
Nope.
Ooh.
Bill,
Love.
any guesses?
I'm
Go
hoping the
guess,
word
Rob.
is beer.
Nope.
Oh.
So we'll just keep going. All right. So we've talked history of Victory. We've talked evolution of Victory. Let's talk about where we're at now. You know, we've had a ton of taproom growth. We have a new partnership under Artisanal Brewing Ventures. And I think that's given us a lot of capability that we wouldn't have otherwise. So if you want to get into some of that, for everyone at home, we have some really cool photos of some of our tap rooms, Chester County, but also Charlotte, where ABV's headquarters are, that we can talk through.
Yeah, I'll be happy to jump into that first. You know, I was picking up a hoagie from a sandwich shop in my neighborhood, great friends of mine. And as I was doing so, they're like, oh my gosh, the Southern Tier distilled spirits you guys are selling are so good. So in terms of the partnership, the reality of Artisanal Brewing Ventures, it was designed and intended to actually be an expansion of the Victory brand, bringing more things of more interest to more people in the audience that we serve. And I believe 4 years down the road that it's doing exactly that. And it's providing a ton of opportunity for the incredible base of team members that we have engaged in order to execute all of this.
Sure. Ron, would you add anything there?
Yeah, I mean, in a practical sense, we're in a new world now where we have big global players in the craft market, and we have to remain independent, but we have to compete against that. So the concept of ABV is all about, let's remain independent, but let's pool our buying resources. Let's pull some of the back of the houses, so the business processes, make them more efficient across all of them. It's a much more efficient model, but let the brands flourish. So it's been great because Victory is still Victory, Southern Tier is still Southern Tier, and Six Point is still Six Point, and Bold Rock is still Bold Rock, great cider. The idea isn't to change what's already successful. The idea is to pull the resources and try to be a more efficient organization. And so, besides some of the aspirational aspects of what we can do with a group together, it's also quite practical. And in the changing beer industry, we want to be survivors, and the key to survival is being nimble. And I think that being with part of this bigger group of like-minded individuals and brewers and just business people really makes you realize we're on the right chart to get through some of these very difficult, it's always been difficult, interesting, changing times.
Sure. And Ron, I know that, we talk about this all the time. We get a ton of social comments about it. They, when drinkers hear that we're part of ABV, they start to get a little wary. But can you start? And then Bill, I'd like you to chime in on how you're very much a part of ABV today, and you still have input on what beers we come out with and how the liquid matches up to what Victory's integrity is.
Yeah, well, as I alluded to earlier, we have group minds from all the breweries. We discuss best practices, of course, but we have very individual approaches to brewing, and that remains so. So that's a given, and that's really good. I think where it gets really interesting, as I said, is the efficiencies of it, and where we can pivot. We have access to a lot more data in the market. So I think, I think I said it earlier. I'll let Bill take it from there.
Well, yeah, that's so well phrased. You hit so many great points. I think that on a higher level, the thing that I would remark on is the fact that, everyone has so much energy to give. And Ron and I built something that has always been infused by new energy, new people, and new ideas. And we've always been a part of creating a platform for excellence. And ABV is just the next level of that platform. And therefore, we just want to create that conduit for the energy to find the right audience. And realistically, if I'm one of the world's largest brewers, ABV is the thumb in your eye.
Got him.
No, just on a practical level, to get more directly to answer your question, Kelly, I am very still involved in quality control, innovation. This is all part of that. But also, just today, Bill had such a great, eloquent answer about Summer Love. I just want to say that just today I was in our weekly meeting where we taste, the senior brewing group tastes all of the beers that were packaged, cans, bottles, sometimes draft too, but always cans and bottles, every single draft. We tasted together, and we were all remarking today on how the Summer Love is like this year. We did a little bit of a tweak. We lowered the bitterness, but we didn't lower the hops. It's still got great hops, but it's a little bit less bitter and a little bit richer, but not full. We were all remarking that has any of us had one of these? No, we've had always more than one. It's always like 2 or 3 or 6. And I think that's the spirit of the summer love. So, that's what we're doing. That's how Bill and I are involved. I mean, Bill is involved in talking about the beer and creating the marketing and the understanding of the branding. And I'm still involved, in making sure that beer tastes right.
Sure. And the cool part is, as we were building this summer love plan, for example, Bill sits in on all of our creative meetings still. So Bill has been the original designer up until now, still with creative input. So, he's a great resource as we're trying new things, as we're taking chances. He's making sure that we're not bringing it too far for what Victory stands for. So everyone watching at home, I think, can take some comfort in that, knowing that the two of these guys who started it are still very much part of it today.
I'm sure there's a fine line between great resource and pain in the ass, and I'm happy to walk that line.
It was your birthday yesterday. I'll say great resource. So we got to wrap up because we've been talking for a lot longer than we've anticipated. But before we move into some Q&A, I have one final question for you guys. Talking about tap rooms and the ABV partnership and where you guys started and where you've come from, what was that aha moment for you? Or do you remember one that was very distinct? Like, this is way bigger than we ever anticipated. Holy shit, look at where we are. Ron, I'll start with you.
At least 20 times.
I bet.
No, seriously, because beer it's incremental. It's not like tech where you invent something and then all of a sudden in 1 year it blows up and everybody's using it. It's a manufactured item. And so we are taking, natural processes and growing it. And so for us, it's very expensive, each little increment. So honestly, it was like, well, when we first had to buy an extra bright tank, that was sort of an aha moment. And when we needed to buy 4 new fermenters, that's an aha moment. Now there were some really key ones, like when we decided to put a whole new automated packaging line in 2002. That was a huge, once we made that commitment and got the financing and raised the money for that was an aha moment. It's like, okay, this is really good because now we're going to be able to package that beer much less expensively so we can get the price down, make profits, so we can, continue to invest. And then another one was when we put the brew house in, and then when we had the big fermenters in Downingtown, and then the centrifuge in Downingtown, and then all these things, every one of them is an aha moment, literally. I don't,
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. Bill, would you add anything to that? Or do you feel
there's too many of them, and he actually phrased it really, really well, but I'll give you a cool anecdotal story. I remember Ron's mom sharing with us a story about how in 1997, 98, very early when we were open, she was placing an order with LL Bean in Freeport, Maine, via phone, not online. And when she was giving her information about where to ship to, and she said Downingtown, Pennsylvania, the person on the other end said, "You mean where Victory is?" And when she shared the story with us, it was one of those moments like, holy cow, people know about us.
I think the two of you are very humble, and that even still, when people walk into the tap rooms and they're having a beer and they see you, they think it's the coolest thing ever. And you're just like, I'm here having a beer. And, you still take it in a really humble way, which is cool. We are at time, guys. So thank you for everyone that's joining. We have been talking for 55 minutes. It feels like 20 minutes. So what I'll say is we'll get to all of the Q&A in the chat afterwards. And Bill and Ron would love for you guys to have a part of that, to be able to connect with some of your fans. And I will leave this on the fact that next year, Victory turns 25. It's a big milestone. So even though we've talked about a ton today of where we've been, I can only imagine where Victory is headed for 25 and beyond. Bill, what are your initial thoughts for next year? We talk about innovation as a big focus. Are there any other things you're excited for next year?
Well, the other big thing is we're actually going to plant our flag in Philadelphia with the announcement of our Taproom there in Philadelphia, and very respectful opportunity to be a part of the community there. And I'm very much looking forward to that.
Me too. Ron, what about you?
Well, I mean, that's the obvious one. We've been wanting to do that for a while, and that'll be something that's a long time coming, and we're really excited about it. There's so many ideas right now. I have to be honest with you, we haven't settled in on it. We'd love to hear your thoughts, but we really don't know exactly what package it's going to be. But we promise you it's going to be special because it's a 25th anniversary. We got to do something.
That's a great point. So let's use the comments. Let's use the discussion in Taproom Live to hear what all of you want to hear, want to see from us, want to taste from us. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Bill and Ron, it's always a pleasure. Thank you for your time, and we will talk later. Cheers.
Cheerio.